Well, I was going to go up on the north side of the Butler building and paint it some more, try and get that done today, but the weather, the sun's starting to come out a little bit now, but it's way too humid and it's too cool to be putting the roof coating on. So instead of doing nothing, I'll do something, I guess, and we'll do a review of these brands of roof coating and just kind of roof coating in general, this Elastomeric stuff. It's pretty nice, and I'll tell you all about it, how I've used it, the pros and cons of these three brands here, and all sorts of other information you might find relevant. So by the time you are done with this video, and it's likely going to be a long one, so brace yourselves, you should be fairly knowledgeable. Well, you're not going to be fairly knowledgeable. You'll be knowledgeable enough that if you decide you want to put this stuff on your roof, you know what you're getting into. So buckle up and let's get after it. Now, if you've never heard of Elastomeric roof coating, you're probably wondering what it is. Don't worry, I will tell you. After a word from our sponsor, I'm just kidding, I'm not sponsored. None of these brands are sponsoring me, just so we're clear. No one sponsors me. I sponsor me. Anyway, Elastomeric roof coating it's, in my opinion, it's basically a miracle product that you put on your roof and it stops it from leaking and it reflects heat and keeps your attic cooler, which in theory keeps your house cooler, which in theory saves you on your energy bill. But quite frankly, any money you save is being printed away by inflation, so thanks, Uncle Sam. But regardless, this stuff does seal up your roof. It does reflect heat, and it will stop your roof from deteriorating quite as fast, which if you have a roof that needs to be replaced, this isn't a replacement roof, technically, but effectively, if you put enough of it on, it is a replacement roof. Sort of. We'll get into all sorts of technical details and application theory and stuff like that in a minute, but for right now, let's go take a look at what I've been using it on. Hey, look, I can see my house from here. We'll talk about that second. First thing I want to talk about is a shop roof here, because that's what I was complaining about. Now, this is the north side of the Butler building, and all that you see here, and I skipped here and there because these are light panels that hopefully you noticed in the earlier clip, one of the earlier clips, however I put this video together. But everything that you see on this north side here, this was a gallon. I did all this on a gallon of that paint, and I brushed it on. We'll talk about why in a minute. But it goes quite a ways on the metal roof, and a gallon of this stuff on an asphalt roof like over there, it doesn't go as far, and we will talk about why in a minute. But the main reason I came up here and started painting this was to reflect heat, because this shop is usually 5 to 10 degrees warmer inside than outside, especially if the wind's not blowing, which it is right now. It's actually not too bad outside, humidity aside. But that's the main reason I came up here and started painting this. Second reason is because I wanted to stop it from rusting. The roof doesn't leak really bad on the shop for some reason. Not complaining, but it doesn't leak all that bad. So the first coat is just to reflect heat, stop rust, and then later in the summer, if I get bored and I have some roof coating left, I'll probably come up here and do a second coat to help seal it up a little bit better before we get into winter and do some actual shop improving. Okay, well, I guess the wind is going to blow today. It's picking up, but you should be able to hear me okay. We're going to talk about the farmhouse. This is the only spot on the farmhouse I've never painted. And that's because every time I think, oh, whatever's left in my bucket, I'll just paint this real quick. Yeah, I always run out because usually I have to go to a spot that's actually leaking and paint it. So we'll crawl up here and talk about this for a minute. Man. So the main reason we bought this roof coating was to paint the farmhouse. And if you can't tell, this house is struggling. It's old. It needs a lot of work, and we've done some work to it. And there are a lot of reasons why we haven't done more to it faster, but I think most of you can probably extrapolate and understand why that is. So the roof on this is old. The last time it was shingled, it was not shingled very well, and we had a lot of problems with shingles blowing off and just leaks, lots and lots of leaks. And so I've come up here over the past several years and I have put a lot of that elastomeric coating on here. So when I tell you that this roof is worst case scenario, I mean it's worst case scenario. There's barely a layer of shingles left, effectively, and it just all needs to be replaced. The shingles are so old, they're just brittle, they just crumble. You look at them wrong, they crumble. And if you want a little more detail on that, if you want to watch like a 48-minute video, I made a video about fixing a hole here in the roof that the raccoons made, because raccoons are such lovely creatures. And I talk a little bit about why the roof is the way it is. If you want to watch that entire video, I'll put it in the description, but you don't have to. It's not necessary. So as you can see, the brighter spots I've done more recently, and the duller spots I've done once, maybe twice. So the west side of the house there, oh look, there's a Starlink. It's awesome. The north side here, and basically the entire south side, we've done regularly. So the last time this thing was painted, Dad and I both came up here, and we basically painted the gutters on all the shingles. I don't think they're supposed to be in line like this. That's why I said the roof wasn't really put on right the last time it was done. And that has stopped a lot of our leaks. There's probably about, 5 or 6 layers here, 4 or 5 here, anywhere from 5 to 7 on the west side. I've put a lot of this stuff on, and the nice thing about it is that it does stop the shingles from blowing away, but it also makes the roof cool enough that you can actually be up here in the middle of summer when it's like 100 degrees, and it's awesome. So I've used a lot of it, most of this roof coating, on this house. And then that little playhouse over there that you can't see very well through the trees, of course, I painted it too, and it's got better shingles on it than this does. And so I didn't have to put as much on, but it's mainly just to reflect heat and glue the shingles to the roof. In the last segment, I got off track talking about the roof and stuff here. I should probably give you some more relevant information. The roof coating does stop leaks. I've put enough of it on. It does stop the roof from leaking. And we've had enough rain this spring. We've probably had 10, 12 inches of rain this spring, and we haven't had any leaks in the roof. Knock on wood. That's asphalt. We'll go knock on some wood when I get off the ladder. But it does work if you put enough of it on. The problem is when your roof is this bad, you have to keep putting it on because it does contract and it will crack a little bit. And when your roof is just this far gone and the only thing sealing your roof is this coating, yeah, you got to keep putting it on every once in a while. So I'll probably put some more on before summer is out. But for right now, through the spring, it's been holding up pretty good. And on our way down the ladder, you can see the south side of the shop all painted up. It looks really nice, actually. I thought it would look kind of cheesy like it does on the farmhouse here, but it actually looks pretty nice on the Butler building. So now that you have a fairly good idea, I hope, of what this has been used for and how much of it has been used, let's talk about application. How have I put all this stuff on? Brush in a bucket. That's how. And I've gone through several brushes. That's just the nature of this stuff. It's got welding rods in it. That's hard to move. All right, so we have a tale of 2 buckets here. This one's been used a lot. This one's been used a little bit. This brush has been used a little bit. Okay, as you can see, it's still fairly flexible, minimal effort, right? Paint's still on the handle and everything, barely been used. This poor thing, though, has been used, it's been used a lot, and it's pretty stiff. I mean, I can force it and make it bend, but it's pretty stiff. It's time to retire this from painting. This bucket, one of the nice things about this coating is that you can get a hold of it once it cures, and you can basically just like peel it off. It peels off nicer if I had 2 hands, and actually got a good peel on it. It would just pull right out of there. So application is a brush. You can roll it on, and I think all these brands say you can spray it if you want. I wouldn't recommend spraying it. That's just me. I wouldn't want to try and clean that stuff out of my sprayer, but you do what you want. It's free country, in theory. But I put it on with a brush. And the reason I put it on with a brush is because on the farmhouse roof, because it is so bad, I had to clear away so many shingles that the roof had so many little valleys and pieces of shingles that were gone that the brush was the only thing that would like get down in between those, and I'd paint on kind of like that and work it in between all the cracks and stuff and brush it back up and get a good layer on to seal it to keep everything together and to stop water from getting through. That's why I had to use a brush. We tried using a roller the first time we painted. it did not work very well at all. It just, so much stuff, so many pieces of shingles, so much dirt and all that stuck to that nap on the roller that it just wasn't worth it. They're harder to clean than brushes are, so we just have stuck with brushes. If you take this, a 4-inch brush, I've used 3-inch, 4-inch is better. If you rinse this out with soap and water really good for each gallon you put on, you get a little bucket like this. This is just an old paint can that I undid the crimp on the metal ring, and I pulled it off, and so I'm left with this nice handy dandy plastic bucket. Works really good. Fill it almost full. Leave it about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, well, more like 3/4 to an inch below the top, so that when it sits on the roof and at angles, it doesn't overflow. I go up with about a gallon of this stuff. I paint it on with a brush. When I get done, I come off the roof. I rinse the brush out, rinse the bucket out, let it dry, and then I can go back up in about 30 minutes, depending on the outside temperature and how fast it dries, and go back up there and put more on. And if I'm in a hurry and I get started early in the day, assuming the weather cooperates a little bit, I can get 3 to 4 gallons of this stuff on in a day, and the first gallon usually goes pretty quick, but then you lose energy and your hand starts to cramp, and it's just hard to do all this with a brush. But I've done it, and I've put a lot of this stuff on that way. On the shop roof, the reason I put it on with a brush, I could have rolled it, I think, but the reason I put it on with a brush is because I wanted to get it worked in around all the little screw heads. I wanted to get in the gaps. I wanted to start the sealing process a little bit, but the bigger reason I did it is because the bristles on the brush give that roof paint a little bit of texture, which helps stuff grip a little bit better. Because even though on the north side in particular, all that was rusty, it was still slick. And I was a little nervous up there because, well, that's just really slick stuff, so I had to be careful. But this gives a little bit of texture, which means you get better grip when you go up there next. And also, because the metal gets so hot when it's not painted, you brush this stuff on. So I'd get some, and I'd brush it on in about, a 16, 20-inch stroke. And I'd do this a couple times, and then it would start becoming tacky, and it'd start setting up because the roof was just that warm. And that's the other reason I put it on with a brush. It was just easier to manage. So the second coat I will likely roll on the shop, but on the house, until we replace the roof, it's going to have to be put on with a brush. I don't think we need, well, we'll just set that stuff down there. I don't think we need those props anymore, and I'm going to sit down. We got a shop where I have an office chair to sit in. I'm going to sit in it. Okay, that way we can point. It's a lot easier now. So, actual application aside, weather conditions are the biggest thing that's going to dictate when and how you put this stuff on. So, I've got these 3 brands here. They are each a little bit different. This is the thinnest. This is the thickest. This is actually somewhere in between. I haven't used this Henry stuff in a couple years, but if memory serves, the Henry is in between the Gardner and the Rustoleum. And if I was thinking, I would have organized this stuff better before I started the video. Okay. So, because this stuff is varying degrees of consistency, viscosity, let's say, does that mean any of it is better or worse than the other? No. Because in my experience, you would use something thin like this when it's really, really hot. So shop roof, really, really hot. You want something thin because it's going to set up so fast. You have to have a chance to spread it around a little bit, and you want it thin enough you can spread it around before it basically just cooks to the roof. And if you are painting a roof for the first time and it's still black shingle, it's going to get really, really hot. And so you want something that is going to get a good initial layer on. You have a chance to spread it a little bit. It doesn't gum up your brush immediately. It doesn't just sit there and congeal in your little bucket. That's what you want. So the first few layers that we put on the farmhouse was this Henry stuff. And it worked really good. It was thin enough to spread around, but it was thick enough that it would go ahead and start bonding and setting so that I could get a good wad of it underneath the edges of shingles and stuff to provide a good seal and a good way to hold the shingles down. Same applies to the Rustoleum. I haven't used the Rustoleum on the farmhouse yet. I used the last of the Gardner on the farmhouse. The Rustoleum is what I painted the playhouse with, and it was pretty warm when I did that. About 85 outside. Those were all, of course, dark shingles, so it set up pretty good. It could have stood to be a little warmer outside. But the temperature of your roof is slightly more important than the temperature outside. And you start putting a layer of this stuff on, it reflects enough heat that you have to wait until later in the day to go up and apply it, or it won't sit as well where you need it to seal, if that makes any sense. So yeah, these two are what I would recommend for really hot weather or a really hot surface. So initial coat, one of these, or if you're going up and it's like 100 and some degrees and you're going to put this stuff on, which you should because it sets up better that way and it sets up faster that way, I would also recommend doing these. They will work better if you need to go up in the afternoon and put stuff on. Now, this Gardner stuff, I like this a lot because this is what I recommend for spring or fall application. It is thick. It sets up really fast, even if it's like 60 or 70 degrees outside. And you can use it in early spring, late fall, where it's not really all that hot. The sun's not going to be out as much, but you need to go up and seal your roof a little bit more. This stuff works great for that. You cannot use this Gardner stuff. If it gets above like 85 outside, I would not recommend using this because it will start to congeal and coagulate in your little bucket there. It'll gum up your brush. It won't spread around as good. It does not work as good. But in spring or fall, this stuff is awesome. If you need to just get up there really quick, put it on, and you need to cure enough that it doesn't wash off, this stuff works great. These two take longer to set up. The biggest problem with the Gardner is that it has a very strong ammonia smell. I mean, it is bad. It is really, really bad. But it works very well. So if you get your little bucket set just right, and you have some wind, it will blow most of the ammonia stench away from you. But if you get a nose full of it, I'm not around ammonia very much, so to me it's extra bad. Maybe some of you that are maybe janitors or whatever, and you're around ammonia, maybe it doesn't bother you as much, but it bothers me a great deal. Obviously not enough to stop putting it on, but it does bother me, so that is something to consider. And the other thing, if I was thinking, I probably would have got some prices on these. I'll try and put them on screen now, but this Gardner was the most expensive out of all these, if memory serves, and the price on it recently shot up a great deal, which is why we switched to the Rustoleum. So Gardner's going to be the most expensive. The Henry you can get at Home Depot and Lowe's and places like that. I think they have it on the shelf. That's where we used to go get it, and I believe the Rustoleum is the same thing. You can just get it on the shelf at one of those box stores or whatever, and never seen the Gardner on a shelf. Maybe I just didn't notice it. I don't know. But again, if I can find some prices, the Gardner cost however much I put on screen right now, a bucket. Currently, today's June 13th, 2025, so the Gardner costs whatever's on the screen at whatever place. And the Henry costs whatever at whatever place. And the Rustoleum costs X amount at whatever place. And I'll put that stuff on screen, or I'll cut that segment out if I can't find pricing or whatever. Now, coverage. How much does this actually cover? Probably should mention that too. Each one of these, it just depends. There's no good way. They estimate you can do about, I think the Henry says here, approximate coverage, 475 square feet per pail per coat. So they say one bucket of this stuff will do 475 square feet. Well, that just depends. Tick. Don't need him there. It just depends on how much you put on. It's not worth putting a thin layer on. You need to really slobber this stuff on there. Do not cheap out with it. Don't try and... It's not wall paint. You're not trying to feather it out, make it look pretty. This is a sealant, a thin liquid sealant, and you want to slobber this stuff on there. I mean, you want to get it on there thick, And it will go, especially on your first couple of coats, it'll go pretty quick because you're filling in all those little porous surfaces on the shingles, all those little gaps and cracks in between the shingles. It'll disappear pretty quick. So I don't think 475 square feet on a worn out roof, a worst case scenario roof like I showed you, that's not accurate. Now, let's say you have a new roof and you're putting this stuff on there just to help reflect heat and save your new shingles from deteriorating as quickly, you know, stop them from blowing away, give your roof a little bit of extra rigidity. Yeah, you probably get 400 some square feet out of it then. And each one of these it's just to varying degrees. The Gardner you're probably going to get less out of. I don't know if it says on the front here. Yeah, 450 square feet per container. I would say that's accurate if you're putting it on a new roof. You're not putting it on as thick. You know, that's what you want. But coverage just varies depending on how bad your application is. You're not supposed to put it on a roof as bad as what I showed you, but it will work if you put enough of it on. And speaking how much of it you should have to put on, again, worst case scenario roof out there. If I can find, I did a calculation. I measured it at one point because now we have the figure to buy all the material and replace the roof. If I can find the figure where I wrote down the square footage of the whole roof on the house, I'll put it on screen right now. So however many square feet that is, worst case scenario where there's barely a layer of shingles left in most places. I peeled off a lot of old shingles before I started painting that. We started out with a Henry. We bought, these buckets are scattered around. Some of them have been broken and thrown away, but there's one here and there, and oh, there's more around somewhere. There's like stuff everywhere. I want to say we bought 7 of those. So there's one more right there with that green thing in it. Well, there's 2 more over here actually. So that's 4, and then there's 5, 6. Yeah, there's probably 7 or 8 buckets of this Henry stuff that we've put on. Okay, so that's 40 gallons. And then this Gardner stuff, I used a little bit of it on that garden shed playhouse thing that I was talking about out there. I used a little bit of it on that, but most of it went on the farmhouse, and we bought 3 gallons of this. So that's another 15. So now we're at 55 gallons. And I haven't put any Rustoleum on yet on the house. So I'm going to say about 55 gallons of this roof coating between this brand and this brand is on the farmhouse. That sounds like a lot, and that's because it is a lot, but the house required a lot. I mean, I can't really express to you just how bad that roof was, and I never took the time to film it, and I never really took any pictures because I was in a hurry, actually, and I wasn't doing YouTube when I started, and by the time I got enough on there and I was doing YouTube to where I thought about filming it, you didn't really notice just how much I'd improved it. But 55 gallons on a worst-case scenario, and it works. And we're probably going to have to put more on. Let me put it this way. If it doesn't emphasize to you just how much I've put on there, on the south side and the west side, the roof coating is so thick that it's actually hard for me to get traction at this point. It's actually becoming slick. I filled in the little porous areas on the shingles enough that it's starting to become smooth. It's getting difficult to get traction up there. Or maybe I just need new roofing shoes. I probably need new roofing shoes, actually. Those little foam-soled tennis shoes have had enough. But it's a lot. And I imagine for most of you watching this, your roof's not going to be that bad. You just need to put a couple layers of this on just to help it out, and it'll be fine. We need to replace our roof. That's not debatable, and I know that. But it's, you put enough of this stuff on, it works, like I said. So, I don't know. Whatever I put on the screen earlier for cost, we probably spent enough on it at this point. We probably could have bought the roofing materials, but as I'm sure a lot of you can understand, it costs X amount of dollars to buy all the materials at once to do the roof, plus the tooling, and then the biggest thing, you have to have the time, and the weather has to cooperate. So by the time you get that money put together, lump sum, you don't have time and the weather doesn't want to cooperate. So as with a lot of people, I'm sure most of you can understand this, it's sometimes easier to basically nickel and dime and limp something along, even though cumulatively, at the end of the day, you would have spent more than just fixing it outright correctly, okay? It's a lot like with vehicles and stuff. Sometimes you don't have a choice but to limp it along and piecemeal fix stuff as you can, even though it's cheaper and better to fix it all at once. Well, sometimes you can't afford that, you know? And then time. Time is also a huge factor because we're not paying someone to come put a roof on that house. We can do it. But there's a lot of other reasons we haven't gotten to it before now. But this stuff, it does work. All three of these brands work. Again, I would put these two on when it's really hot outside. This is summer application stuff. This is spring and fall application stuff. And just depending on where you live and how bad your roof is, that'll determine how much of this you buy and what you buy. And these are by no means the only brands of this elastomeric roof coating in existence. These are just three that I have used, and I like them. But basically, whatever brand you buy, it's going to do the same thing in the same way. Just read the directions, I guess, and go from there. One last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll let you guys go. On the shop roof, if you want to know like exactly how much it cools stuff off. So we've got this maple here, and it's not really in good shape, but it does put enough leaves on to shield the shop during the higher peak sun hours, however you want to say it. And we've got some Chinese elms over there that they're not worth much for anything, but they do provide some shade. So there is that. So on this Butler building, steel roof, well, the sun's out a little bit. We might be able to take the temperature gun and show. I'll talk about it a little bit. Yesterday, this time, it's probably about 10:30 right now. It was about 80 degrees outside. And can we see the laser pointer? Okay. So on a spot like right there on the north side of the roof, you see a little laser? That spot was about 110 degrees yesterday morning. All right, even though it was only 80 degrees outside, the sun had been on it all morning. About 110 degrees right there where I hadn't painted. Now you come over to the corresponding side of the shop, like right here, about the same area, right there, where I'd painted the day before. You can see that laser right in there. See it moving around. That spot was about 92 to 95 degrees. So it was a pretty significant drop in temperature. Now, we'll do an actual temperature test. The sun's been out for a little bit. That is 101, where I haven't painted on the north side. And where I have painted on the south side, we're about cool 86 degrees. And it's a significant temperature drop. This stuff really reflects a lot of heat. And the biggest thing is, the shop is cooler. So it's probably 75 degrees outside. And yep, that tracks about 75, 78 degrees. So it's the same temperature inside the shop as the ambient temperature outside, which is nice because hitherto now, it would be 85 outside, it'd be 92 in here. The other day it was 93 outside and it was almost 100 degrees in the shop. And I thought that was ridiculous. The tree blocking a lot of the sun over the center part of the south side helps tremendously, but you still have that sun getting on the north side all the time. It just cooks you. And I know that we still have, 4 sides of a steel building that aren't painted, but the roof is where most of the heat is coming in. And I've noticed a huge difference just in a couple days since I put it on. So it does keep things cool. It is significant. And again, like I mentioned earlier, on an asphalt roof, you go up there in the middle of summer especially, you can't hardly be up there. It'll burn you. It gets so hot on those shingles. You put a couple layers of this stuff on, you lighten it up, the color, it reflects so much heat that you can be up there, it's 103, and it's just kind of warm. It makes it a problem to apply it because the material you're painting isn't as hot as it was originally, so it's a little bit of a problem. But you can stand to be up there in the middle of the afternoon, and the roof's not going to burn you if you're acclimated to the heat and all that. You still have to drink plenty of water and all sorts of other cool things like that. You might still get sunburned. It reflects all that light back on your pale white legs if you're like me. Gives you a sunburn. So anyway, that is, I think, everything that I need to cover. I know this video was a little all over the place, but this is like the 12th take, so I'm getting a little irritated with it at this point. Well, that should give you all the information you need to know about this stuff. And again, there are other brands out there that are going to do the same thing. It just depends on where you're at, what it costs, and how much you need, what you're doing it for, all sorts of stuff like that. Probably ought to read the directions, and then if you're like me, you can just ignore them and do what you want with it. And I lied. I'll show you one more thing. They said you're supposed to mix that with a mechanical mixer. Don't do that. That stuff's thick, especially that Gardner stuff. This is my stir stick. And as you can tell, I've stirred a lot with it. It's just kind of layered on there. So the other day, I got smart and I thought I'd take my knife and I'd start peeling the stuff off. And it doesn't want to peel off. It sets up pretty good. It's pretty tough to get loose. Now, right now, this Rustoleum stuff is pretty thin. You can peel it right off. But that Gardner stuff and that Henry, especially that Henry, it sets up. It's hard. It is hard. Oh, there's another bucket. And spiders. Hang on. Ugh. Yeah, it sets up really, really good. I don't think there's anything left in these Henry buckets for me to peel off. Now it's just too thin. But this Gardner stuff, yeah, it sets up really, really good. It's hard to get a hold of and peel. So when it cures, man, it cures good. I tell you what. And you can dip your tools in this stuff, I guess. Give it some rust-proof coating, you know. And this is just with unclean surfaces, too. I'm not prepping anything like the instructions tell you to do. I'm just brushing it off a little bit so I don't get a bunch of dirt in my brush. And I'm going. And it works pretty good. Bonds pretty good. They say you're supposed to prep rusted steel. I didn't do that, and it bonds really good. It's not going to come off, I promise. So, all right, for real now, I'm going to go. That is my comprehensive review and opinion and whatever of this roof coating. So if you made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching. I know this was a long one, a little bland, but if you're looking to put this stuff on your roof, at the very least, it'll reflect heat and make your shingles last longer. And at most, it's not a replacement for a roof, but it will limp you along if you put enough of it on. So the more you know. I'm going to get off of here. It's getting hot. I might be able to actually go do something now. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later.